back in the winter, we ordered 5 pounds of organic turmeric seed from an online store. I'll link to it here for your reference. And started it on heat mats and transplanted it out into this high tunnel during the growing season. And now the weather looks like this, which is not what turmeric normally likes, but the plants have died back. I'd be interested to see what the crop looks like, so I thought I would take folks along. Pretty ragamuffin structure. This is one of our cattle panel high tunnels. Sorry about the road, but we live on a road. There's 4 cattle panels here. This is probably the most beat up one we have. The door looks like this. Sometimes it's closed better, but at this point the turmeric's dormant, so I don't really care. As long as it doesn't get so cold as to hurt the roots. This is a gorgeous space in here in the summer. I wish I had documented back when it was actively growing. They made some beautiful flowers earlier in the season as well, and some of them got to be almost 7 feet tall. They were touching the ceiling. Turmeric's a really thirsty crop, and we have no irrigation in a formal way in this landscape, so we set up this cut off 55-gallon barrel with a float valve. And I've spoken about these float valves in the past, and once in a while one would come out with a battery and drop this bilge pump into the tank and flood irrigate, basically put in 40 gallons of water into the tunnel to water the turmeric. And I feel like they could have used even more water than they got. They are so thirsty. So for central New York State to grow turmeric does not feel like a normal crop. It's probably not something we can do easily outside. It's definitely an experiment. We committed this entire high tunnel to both turmeric, and on this trellising was cucumbers, and we'll have to see how they worked. We dug some of them up the other day, processed and dried them, and they came out beautifully. I'm going to dig up a few here and see how they look. We really decked this soil out in the spring. We added a tremendous amount of compost from the chicken yard, so I suspect I could almost just pull these out without any sort of digging, but I brought a hori just to be on the thoughtful side. I thought I could get underneath. Try. There it is. So let's see. We'll clean it off a little. So that is the yield from one plant. This is a particularly large one, but this is all growth from this year. I bet if we were much further south, and if the high tunnel was really buttoned up and we watered super thoroughly all the time, we'd get a lot more. But I don't know, there's a fair bit on this plant. Let me see if I can find the mother nublet. Let's see, so there's some more pieces. Here's some more. The thing that I love about it is this is so bright and so fresh. It's such a lovely sweet flavor. And I'm interested to see, I think they might have gotten a little too cold, but we're going to hold on to these. These are the original parts that we planted that begat this whole growth and the yield from it. We're going to store these in moist sawdust in our root cellar and try to sprout them again over winter. They probably got a little too cold, but it's not too risky, so let's try. There's another mother component that may be worth setting aside to see if we can get that to sprout again. And then the very young growth from this season, really different. Beautiful both ways. I love how easily they pop off in this really loose, composty soil. The components are breaking off pretty nicely. So just now I've dug up 3 plants. Let me show you what actually came from that. So those are the 3 original bits that we sprouted on a heating mat way back in February, March and transplanted out. This is all of the growth from this season, from those 3. So it's not a 20-to-1 increase or anything like that, but for central New York State, northern US, zone 5B, on a north-facing slope on a busy road in a real ragamuffin high tunnel, I'm not complaining. So we're going to save those mother pieces and put them in the root cellar or in the basement, but I also want to save some of these bottom components and see if they'll regrow in the spring. I'd love to get feedback from people that have grown turmeric. Is this possible? Will it work? I probably would have been smart to dig these up before the tops had experienced freezing, but the soil certainly hasn't frozen in here. And these look like some very alive, really vibrant root systems. I wonder if we cut this low and we just basically store them in moist sawdust down in the basement and let them resprout in the spring, will they? If they rot away, that'll be a nice rich thing to dump in for the chicken yard. Let me crack a few more of these off. You can see there's more to harvest, small bits on these smaller ones. But cut here and stored together down in a root cellar. Let me know, have you done this before if you're further south or even somewhere cold like New York State? Does this work? The other thing I want to try out in here, So we got a couple experiments I'd like to do. See what happens with these mothers if we store them again. Is that a possibility to get a resprout? Boy, that would be amazing. These aren't soft. They maybe got a little cold, but they don't feel damaged. Take the bases that we harvested our fresh turmeric from and store those down in basement conditions. These didn't freeze below ground. Can they resprout? That would be lovely if they could. And then last but not least, leave a couple in the high tunnel to see if they can overwinter. I'm going to simply take the stalks and fold them over. There's only 2 or 3 plants here, and I'm going to feed them the stalks of the ones we cut off, and then I'm going to bury all of this in some oak leaves. Our friend was doing a cleanup job at a neighbor's house and they dumped all the oak leaves, so all the fertility of an acre of oaks and maple were dumped here, and we put tons in this high tunnel. So I wonder if that's close enough to the Philippines to get them through the winter. We'll see. And got all the leaves and weeds and debris down in a hole underneath. This will fill with water in the winter, and we can harvest out compost tea or use it to do our hot composting system in here, which we do each spring, and we'll do again. We've got about 3 or 4 turmeric buried underneath all of these shredded leaves. We've got all of these roots to heal in for the winter, for winter storage. And then the main point of all this is the actual turmeric harvest, which I feel pretty good about. Very first time ever growing it. Some of these are a little funky where they've got these roots shooting off, but we can crack that off. I would guess we've got at least 10 or 12 pounds, maybe a little bit more. So it definitely doubled what we initially got. We got the original pieces to work with as well. So let me create, I've got a little folding crate here that can be stored in the basement. I've got some turmeric from the other day. I'm going to get them all together in one communal container that we can close up and put down there. I'll start with a coarse layer for good drainage, which is a chance to kind of filter out from the seed bed some of the coarser material, the old pieces of charcoal, things that haven't broken down. Now I'll grab some shredded leaves to be a nutrient sink at the bottom, so if there are earthworms that wake up over winter, they have something to feed on and bring up to the roots. Then I'll grab some soil from the actual garden bed that's been here for a while and use that as my main material. I don't want to fill it up to the top because I really want to settle the roots in a way where they can get super buried right up to the lip there. I'll start with one little row of these just to be a test. I'll put a couple mothers in one spot off to the side. Cover them with a little soil, and then the main hurrah is this stuff. There's a lot of plant material in one crate. I'm going to add some soil on top just to settle everybody in, and then finish it with sawdust just to insulate and retain a very even moisture state within there. This is what I would do with a lot of our hardy perennial plants for overwintering for the nursery, so that's worked well. Will it work for tropical plants? I have no idea. We'll see. That project is set in motion. Maybe I might water it once with some slightly warmer than outside water. Put it down in the basement. Maybe not in the root cellar where it's extra cold, might actually get below freezing once in a while, but just somewhere in the basement. I'll check on it again in January, February. We'll do an update. If things are completely rotten, you won't hear from me again. It didn't work. If it does, then we'll revisit getting some expanded turmeric with our own seed stock. It's pretty special to think that in New York State, in a structure that looks like this, made out of recycled, repurposed greenhouse poly and a door that really didn't even close. It was fine for the summer, it needed the ventilation, but in the fall it doesn't even close. I'll repair that maybe, or maybe just turn it into a weighted flap. But that context on a busy, gnarly road can grow this in a season without drip irrigation and without any fertilizers, without any additional heat, just compost heat. So that's pretty fun. This space can be left dormant now for the winter. I'm probably going to go through when we need to drain our water tanks and soak the heck out of this soil and soak the leaves as well, just to start getting the decomposition process going. We might throw some seed down for some cold, hardy perennial nursery plants, like maybe Mitsuba and Korean celery, maybe some Good King Henry and things like that, to see if they can cold stratify in this context over winter without protection, and then pop up early in the spring to transplant. Or we'll just use this for annual starts, or we'll use it for turmeric again, we'll see. But this structure's been here, it cost about $140 to build about 8 years ago. It's still kicking. I love it. Our hose line hasn't frozen up yet, so we can still use that to wash these off. So I'm just going to hit this with some high pressure water, get them relatively clean, and Sasha can do the final cleaning in the kitchen. Can turmeric grow in a climate that looks like this for 6 to 8 months out of the year? Yes. Season extension seems to be pretty important, but that could have been low tunnels, a bent EMT conduit, or some sort of season extension like that, even maybe very dark rocks in a very warm, sunny position. But we are on a north-facing slope at 1,200 foot elevation, zone 5B, with not a very amazing growing season overall. This one was pretty warm, and we got a lot of turmeric. It's going to be great to process this and enjoy all the medicine. Turmeric, you are a miracle. Thanks for growing with us.